Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today. Hope you're all doing absolutely excellent. And today we're gathering to talk about the Steam Machine. We're wondering what the price tag is because it can go everywhere from $500 all the way up to like $850, $900 maybe. You never know nowadays. And all these prices within that range mean a number of things. The lower it gets, the more competitive Valve gets to be, the more excited we all are, and the more it means for the games industry. Can this device reach the more casual consumer instead of just us, the hardcore? But there's a lot of external issues that make us wonder if Valve can even do that if they wanted to. RAM prices are going up. In turn, GPU prices are going up. This is because of a big push into AI that we'll break down in this video. This is going to be a long video, so get cozy. But before we begin, a quick word from today's sponsor. The following video is sponsored by Wand. Wand is the go-to platform for customizing how you want to play. It's packed with thousands of assists, guides, and maps for over 3,500 single-player PC games. So if it's something like a game such as Borderlands 4, where you could just change up the XP multiplier to level up quickly, or you could even change the loot modifier to get legendary weapons quickly, you can do that with just a press of a button. Wand is the answer for you. The mods are regularly tested by their in-house team for the newest releases such as Digimon Time Stranger or even Dying Light the Beast. All you do is download and install. From there, thanks to Wand's smart game detection, so long as the game is launched, it'll pick it up right then and there and allow you to start customizing your experience. And if you're worried like, oh, Matt, I don't like all the tweaking and twerking and all that stuff, I don't like modding, look, all you do, if you don't like it, is you flip a switch and it's right off, right then and there. And you can do this in real time too, so just the action never stops. Keep in mind that this week only, Wand is offering 25% off their annual Pro subscription. This is the lowest price they're gonna offer all year, and it's the best time to unlock the full Wand experience. So what are you waiting for? Check out Wand in the link in the description down below and level up how you wanna play. But this really all centers around a recent interview quote that, of course, came from the lovely FPS podcast. I'll have it linked down below. The homies, Skill Up, Jake Baldino, pressing Valve for some answers, doing their thing, getting the right answers out of them. We have a better idea of where this Steam Machine will be priced. Now, before I play the clip and we dive into our analysis here, I would just say this. Prepare yourselves. I think this thing will not be skyrocketing in price because of Valve's rep. I just believe that they'll try to find a way to make this thing as cheap as possible. They've also said as much that it's going to try to be competitive with mid-level PCs. At the same time, there is a lot going on in this world, and a lot of these part manufacturers significantly jacking up their price because of a shortage of stock is going to result in things being out of basically all these hardware manufacturers' hands. You know, Xbox, PlayStation, Valve, like there's no heroes in this game, unfortunately, thanks to the lovely push into AI, which I'll also have some thoughts on. But first, we'll play the clip and then we'll get into the analysis. So take a listen to this part of the FPS podcast talking about the price of the Steam Machine, and then we'll start to break it down from there.
And I'm curious about obviously price, because that's a huge question with this, because we look at this device and we understand that it's sort of a mid-level PC in that sort of category. You said that the Steam Machine is more powerful than 70% of gaming PCs that you register on the hardware server. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think in terms of like general GPU level, I mean, I think we have looked at that number as part of speccing the machine, so it's possible it's evolved a little bit over time, but I think, ballpark, it's about there.
Yeah. So then, obviously, that question becomes like, okay, well, where does the price land? I know you haven't announced a price yet, but I mean, can you give us any information about what consumers might expect in this regard?
I think that if you build a PC from parts and get to basically the same level of performance, that's the general price window that we aim to be at. Ideally, we'd be pretty competitive with that and have a pretty good deal, but we're working on refining that as we speak. And right now is just a hard time to have a really good idea of what the price is going to be, because there's a lot of different things that are fluctuating.
Yeah, a lot of external things that are
absolutely. So, but it's not going to be a sort of subsidized device. Like Valve's not going into this thinking we're going to eat a big loss on this so that we can grow market like share or category or anything like that. Correct?
No, it's more in line with what you might expect from the current PC market. Yeah.
Okay.
So they're not subsidizing it. This means that they're looking to, at the very least, break even on this device. We don't know if they're trying to profit off of it. You could put them in the break-even realm because Steam is such a massive storefront. It dominates the PC market. PC gaming is only growing, so this can be a somewhat safe bet to imagine Valve to make in that regard, that they're not just trying to profit off this thing, but expand their base of basically people who are shopping within the Steam store, you know, making your money off of software as Valve has historically done. But they also reference external issues in that clip of the interview. What are these external issues? Well, first and foremost is RAM pricing going up. This is because of manufacturers prioritizing AI clients who are hogging all of the hardware to increase the amount of data centers around the world. For example, OpenAI just revealed they are targeting 900,000 RAM per month. So the result of this is more AI data centers and a shortage in RAM for the common consumer, because big companies need to gobble it all up. And that means that there's a price increase. Like, oh, you want that thing that's usually readily available? You're going to have to pay for it. Now, for some context on just how much pricing has already gone up, a PS5 now costs less than 64 gigabytes of DDR5 memory. And even the Xbox Series consoles at its highest price is in this ballpark. So you could either get a part upgrade for your PC, or you can just buy a whole console. And I think the decision there is pretty easy. Again, this is a motivator, as we'll get into multiple times in this video. Valve has a lot of motivation to undercut where they can, when they can. But as I'll also talk about, with this sort of situation where like OpenAI is just gobbling up all the RAM, it's hard to have a hero in this sort of battle when they're just buying out all the stock. I think about it a lot like Pokemon cards and how I absolutely despise that market, because you'll see the videos online. It's just grown adults who are addicted to making money, just rummaging through effectively a children's toy. And the Pokemon company does nothing about it. And there's just shortages constantly. And then you go online and the prices for everything you want are ridiculous, and it pushes people like me completely out of the hobby. I look at that the same way here. And what I think is going to happen here, if you're looking for a glimmer of hope, I think it's going to come down to who's the most prepared. And the question is really in all this, is Valve prepared? Were they ready for this reality with OpenAI? Because Bloomberg reported that Lenovo had stockpiled their RAM not only through the rest of 2025, but even into 2026 to combat any sort of price shock. That's the type of stuff you want to see, like a company being on their toes and taking up some stock for themselves to keep their prices below all of their competitors, to suddenly make them a lot more appealing to the customer. As we talked about with games this year, games like Expedition 33, games like Mafia: The Old Country, the ones undercutting are getting rewarded the most in this economy because everyone's looking to live a lot cheaper nowadays, and understandably so with everything being so expensive. But meanwhile, on the other end of the spectrum, you have Moore's Law is Dead reporting that Xbox is unprepared for this reality, and that the price will likely go up again for Xbox Series consoles and get passed on to the consumer. Either that, or they're just gonna dead stop producing these series consoles. And I think either reality is more likely. So that's step one to the external issues that Valve is referencing, right? There's things like that where it's like, well, there goes all the RAM. Like I imagine the thing is shipping in Q1 2026. The manufacturing's already kind of underway. At least you think so. So the question is Valve ahead of the curve? Do they need to adjust anything for shortages later in the year if there's a huge demand in stock for the Steam machine? Then you get into the GPU card price hike. This is attached to the RAM issue because it's been reported that AMD will be jumping their GPU prices by at least 10%. And again, emphasis on the phrase there, at least 10%. So it can be much more than that. Meanwhile, WCCF Tech has threw NVIDIA in there as well. Now, the Steam machine is using a semi-custom AMD RDNA 3 for their GPU. And this is, again, in direct relation to the RAM issue. Effectively, what happens is companies like NVIDIA and AMD leverage this memory for their graphics cards. And so they now have to pay more to make their products, which makes the price go up. So now you have two parts within the Steam machine and other hardware across the world that are being gobbled up and affected by this RAM issue, and now prices are going up everywhere. We are just coming off GPU prices going down for a little bit. I'll get into sort of how I feel about this AI bubble and prices going up because of it, and if it'll pop or not. But we just came off of prices being down, and now they're going back up. And then on top of all of this, you have the on and off trade war between the United States and China. Like, tariffs are on, then there's a truce, then the tariffs are back on again. And I think hardware manufacturers are just scrambling and trying to find a new place to make their device for as cheap as possible, because obviously there is a level where you're just pricing the consumer out of interest. And as I said earlier, the cheapest is getting rewarded nowadays, where you can get that quality product for a fair price tag. So these are the external issues that Valve is referencing, and they're going to try to keep this thing competitive. They keep emphasizing that. They talk about how they're using similar parts to build a machine, and they're trying to keep that affordable. The assumption with all the parts put together is like this thing's around $700 to $800. My take on this right now, just looking at everything, is now like, what does Valve do? And I still am a deep believer that Valve has a lot more to gain if they choose to lose on this device. I think even trying to break even, depending on what this price ends up being, in my worst of fears, it's in that $750, $800 price range where it's far less appealing to many of us. I worry about that because Steam is such a great ecosystem, and they have the real chance when a lot of Xbox fans are kind of like looking for this new place to land. You have a great landing spot here for cheaper, of course, with a company that you can build some trust around. And I think that's really valuable to that demographic. I also think there are people who are on consoles looking to get into PC gaming but don't want a full-on PC, or people like me who work off their computer a lot but would like a more PC-ready experience in the living room, right? There's a lot of appeal for a device like this at the right price. It's something we know Xbox is doing, but they've already talked about the premium high-end device approach, right? So Valve has this great opportunity, and I do agree with the consensus that eating a couple $100 would be way more worth it, because I feel like there would be a huge surge in demand for this device. Because the reality is this, right? If you start to go above that $750, $800 price point, I do find the device self-defeating. All you have to do is look around the industry right now, where you see clearly with hardware prices going up, the next PlayStation, the next Xbox are going to be so much money. People are looking to stick in the now. I have our editor, Dan, who I talk to all the time, and he's going backwards. This dude's dashboard is like 2006 coded, and it's awesome. Like, people are looking back or looking to stay. So the competitor, in my opinion, is like a PS5 Pro. And since Valve's trying to sell this device as like a 4K 60 device, I think you have to be careful about the power comparables around this device. Like, for example, YouTuber The Fox already showed a comparable device he built using the specs that Valve was showing on their own site, and you can see there are some trade-offs. Like, I think it looks great, but that mid-level PC build obviously has its limits, and I can't imagine Valve is going into this unaware of what the PS5 Pro is doing or what the PS6 and the next Xbox are doing. Of course, they said they're focusing on their own audience. They've said, hey, this is about them. We're not looking to chew up that console market, but don't you want this thing to like really succeed? Like, that's the difference between it did fine or it did all right versus this thing exploded out the gate. But I think this device risks rendering itself useless if not priced correctly. And as illustrated earlier, the pricing is effectively out of their hands in some elements if they weren't prepared, like Lenovo seems to be. Since Valve has already confirmed they're not subsidizing, it could be that they were ahead of the game and they're like, yeah, we don't need to subsidize. It could also mean they were caught short-sighted. They didn't invest in the RAM ahead of time. They didn't catch this wave or catch the rumor and like, oh, we should buy up our stock. Maybe that was never their plan to have a ton of stock. I don't know, but they could have been caught flat-footed effectively. And it's like, oh, the prices are going up as we're manufacturing this thing. All right. Yeah, we're going to have to pass that on to the consumer. That's where it gets complicated, because I think the real X factor here, like if we're taking this whole conversation and we're applying it to, say, a recent company we've talked a lot about, Xbox, I think our answer is very obvious. We're like, okay, we know Xbox is going to pass it on to us, because that has been the status quo for the last like 2 years now. We're going to take that blow. Whereas a company like Valve has proven to really think of the customer more. And I think of the Steam Deck and the Steam Deck OLED, just fantastic pieces of hardware. Of course, Steam as an ecosystem is beautiful, so the deals are enormous. I think everything they do is relatively well thought out. My only critique really of Valve at this moment in time is I want to see them continue their core franchises like Half-Life, like Portal, like Left 4 Dead. I think gaming needs that. That's like when gaming was at its peak, man, like early 2010s, late 2000s, where we were like getting everyone involved and everyone was pushing. They weren't just kind of comfortable in collecting. So my guess here with all of this is they'll use the same pricing psychology as they did with the Steam Deck. So with the Steam Deck, everyone always references it as a $400 device because that is where the lowest SKU started. But I can at least attest for myself, and granted it's anecdotal, myself, other people in my life, we're all looking at the $650 version. Like, oh, anti-glare screen, carrying case, most memory, I'm going to use this thing a ton. perfect, I'm going for that. I didn't even blink and I ordered it because I knew the range was there. $400 was there for me, but I cared more about the $650 model. Now, Valve will likely, I think, get the 512 gigabyte model down to something like $600 would be my guess. And I think that's something people would be willing to stomach. The question is where the 2 terabyte model lands. And I could see this being in like the $700 range. That's where I'm currently at, $600 to $700, because I feel like there's a level of, you gotta be realistic about the demand for this device, even if you are servicing just the PC community in your mind. You have to be realistic about how many more customers you can bring through the door, how many waiting customers will be readily available to spend on this device when the new wave of stock arrives. But that is my personal guess, because I think anything beyond $700 really starts to push everyone, even enthusiasts like myself who are already sold on this device, out of the equation. And that's already a smaller demographic than I think Valve's really targeting. Like, you don't build a mid-level PC device to make it niche. I don't think that makes any sense, because like Xbox is handling the high end of things, or at least they're claiming to. So Valve kind of finds themselves in this smaller area. I mean, the machine is literally like a GameCube. Again, says to me like this thing doesn't look like more than $700. And I think in an ideal world, both of these are priced within the $600 range, or like $550, $650. I think that would also feel really good. That's my ideal world pricing. Now, the last angle I want to consider in all of this, because I know a lot of us don't want to think about it, is the $800 or $900 price tag. But there really is a world where that can happen. Just however, with the way that consoles are trending, Valve might be in the right spot, but ahead of everyone else. And what I mean by that is, you look at the PlayStation 6 and the next Xbox, which have been kind of coined as premium devices. They're going to be this next level thing. And to simply put it, we're talking $1,000 plus devices here. So is Valve willing to trade some of that launch hype so that when these machines go over the next year and change, here's the Steam machine and maybe like a Steam Machine Pro, which Valve did talk a little bit about. Is that just sitting there like waiting for you when you see how high everything's priced? The Steam machine is there at this very reasonable price tag of like, oh, it's only $800 versus like $1,200 or $1,500. I don't know. We don't know really where the PS6 will be priced either. The trade-off, of course, if you go this high though, is that launch hype rocketing out the gate. And I know they're targeting the PC market, but you can't fool me into thinking you don't pay any attention at all to the console people who are looking to hop into a growing market that's becoming more accessible. People don't want to build PCs, but they'll buy a gaming console that works as a PC, no doubt about it. So to conclude, my concern, I will equate the AI bubble to the housing bubble, right? So I've been waiting for this housing bubble to pop for a while because I want to refinance our house, right? Like, it's just so expensive nowadays. And every month when I go to pay my mortgage, I'm like, man, if this was a lot cheaper, that would save me a lot of time and stress and money. That'd be great. And so every month I'm just hearing about like, don't worry, the house bubble's going to pop and everyone will be able to refinance and things will be cheaper again. Many of us eagerly await this, or people who are buying houses are waiting for the bubble to pop. So like, okay, I'm going to keep staying in like my condo or my apartment and saving my money, but it just never pops, right? And I eagerly await, for reasons beyond even just hardware, for this AI bubble to pop. I won't even get down that rabbit hole, okay? There's just so many reasons why I think it's just destructive to what we're doing as a race and to our planet. But beyond that, I think if it's like things have gone before in entertainment, I feel like the prices we're starting to see now will eventually, like with RAM and stuff, will eventually come down a little bit. But I do think this is an opportunity for, amid all of the confusion, like a lot of companies took advantage of the tariffs and that confusion, like jacked up their prices. Like Xbox tried to immediately do like $80, tariffs, market conditions. It works, right? And everyone's like, bullshit, dude. And they call them out on that. So the hope is that enough consumers stay strong so these prices can come down. But a lot of people accept it as is, like this is the new standard and effectively the new version of cheap. So when you start to see, again, what I talked about earlier, where here comes the Steam machine, it's $800. We're like, oh my God, this is terrible. But then here comes the next Xbox, the next PlayStation, and they're like $1,200, $1,500. And we're like, whoa, now the Steam machine suddenly looks cheap. Again, I know we're coming off things like GPU prices were just starting to fall and everything, but I just look at this and think to myself, like, is the bubble actually going to pop? So many companies are so deeply convinced this is the next wave, right? Like Microsoft is investing so much in data centers. We see OpenAI, big point of conversation in this video. They're investing a ton. It's just like exhausting. It's really exhausting, but it's also just like, are they just going to suddenly stop? I just don't buy into that. So we're a little bit stuck. I think the sad reality I've had to accept is, unless Valve really proves me wrong here, is like, I don't know if there's a hero in this story right now where like someone just rises up and they're like, you know, unless you're Lenovo, I guess, who seems to be ahead of the curve, like, hey, we've got something for you. We're going to beat the market and we're going to price competitively and we're going to go lower than everyone else. And we know how that's going to benefit us. I mean, if Valve's not doing it, I'm like, who the hell is going to do it? Because that was the one reason a lot of us had optimism. So if they're not subsidizing, I mean, I'm really curious where the thing's going to be priced. But again, I'm sitting in that kind of ideal world, 550, 650, but I think realistically, like probably 650, 750. So that's where I'm at with this whole thing. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm looking forward to seeing what you think. Does what was said in the FPS podcast, which by the way will be linked down below, have you concerned at all? Do you look at this and you think to yourself, I think I'm actually out on this? Does it noticeably impact your hype, or are you kind of in no matter what? Because for me, of course, I'm aware, like, this is my job, so I know I'm picking this up either way to talk about it with all of you. But I do look at this and think to myself, like, if I'm, you know, kind of a more standard consumer is how I would define it, and I look at that price tag, I think like 500, 600, I'm in, no doubt. But I think once you start to go beyond that into the 700s, it becomes even in the holiday season or after the holiday season, I can wait. So I'll be really curious to see your thoughts down below. I'll be reading, so please leave your thoughts. Other than that though, I'll catch all of you in the next one. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.